I got grabbed. Last night, when I was home alone, a hand reached out from under the couch and grabbed me. Nobody was there to see it, and nobody that I told believes me, but it definitely happened. I have zero history of hallucinations or any sort of mental illness, and nobody in my family does either. I wasn't high or drunk. I wasn't under any distress or in any unsound state of mind when it happened. This is not the kind of thing you can just imagine, and I'm sure now that it wasn't a dream. I was watching TV when it happened. The remote fell under the couch and I started fishing around for it, without really looking, not wanting to get up from my seat. I brushed it with the tips of my fingers and it slid further underneath. I was super annoyed, BC. I had to get down on my knees to reach it. I finally found the remote, and that's when it grabbed me. As I pulled the remote out, a hand shot up from under the couch and wrapped its fingers around my wrist. I was able to yank myself away quickly. It didn't hold on tight, just enough that I felt a little resistance. I jumped to my feet, obviously terrified. I didn't scream or anything. I was honestly too scared to make a sound. My heart was beating so fast that my ears started to ring. The TV was still going, commercials droning on while I tried to process what just happened. The hand had only come out about a foot from under the couch. It had an arm attached to it, though I wasn't able to see past its elbow, and it slinked back below the couch as soon as I pulled myself free from its grasp. It didn't hurt, and it didn't leave any sort of bruise or mark or anything on my wrist, but I definitely felt it, and I definitely saw it. All I could do was stare at the spot where the hand had appeared. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, until I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps right outside my front door. I live in a second-story apartment. It's a pretty cramped place in a pretty old building, so I can usually hear footsteps from the moment they enter the building downstairs. But I guess I was so freaked out by the hand that I didn't even notice someone was outside until they were already opening the door. My roommate walked in on quite a scene. She immediately registered how off the vibe was. I could see it on her face. She found me standing upright in the middle of our living room, remote in hand, facing away from the screen while Full House filled the air. I'm sure I'd think it was odd too. She hit me with a "you good?" while shifting a paper bag full of groceries in her arm and pocketing her keys. I felt like I was caught with my pants down, but just seeing a familiar face brought some of the blood back to my veins. And yeah, I stuttered. I came back online and flicked the TV off. I felt her eyes on me as she walked over to the kitchen. There's no wall or anything dividing the two rooms. Like I said, the place is pretty cramped. She started putting her groceries away as if everything was normal, but I could tell she wanted to ask what was up. I kept looking back and forth between her and the couch. I can't explain it, but I already knew that if I looked under there, I wouldn't find any trace of whoever or whatever grabbed me. As she started loading up the fridge, I dropped to my hands and knees once again, without taking even a second to ready myself. I brought my head down to the ground and looked under the couch. Nothing. Pretty much what I expected. There was barely enough room for me to squeeze my arm under there for the remote. No way a whole person could fit beneath that thing. And even if they could, there's no way I wouldn't have seen them or heard them. Seriously, what's up? I looked up to see my roommate standing right behind me, arms crossed, clearly concerned. I knew I was acting strange, and I knew that nothing I would come up with in the next 5 seconds could possibly excuse my behavior. I made a judgment call, honestly not really caring about how it would be received. Something grabbed me earlier. What? Under the couch. I dropped the remote, and when I picked it up, a hand reached out from under the couch and grabbed me. Took her a second to respond. What the fuck are you talking about? That's it. A hand reached out and grabbed me by the wrist. It happened like a minute before you got here. That part might have been a lie, actually. I have no idea how long I had been standing in the middle of the room before she showed up. Wait, like someone broke in? No, It's just like I said. A hand reached out, grabbed me, and then it was gone. She just kind of looked at me for a while. I don't blame her, but it's not like there was any way for me to sugarcoat it. Are you sure? What do you mean, am I sure? Yes, I'm fucking sure. My voice broke a little when I said that. I was still down on my knees, like I was praying for her to believe me. Okay, well, obviously that didn't happen, Sam. I let out a desperate laugh and threw my hands up in the air. I slapped them down on my thighs dramatically and shook my head in exasperation. Yeah, obviously it sounds fucking crazy, but you asked what happened, and that's what happened. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm just being honest. I pulled myself up to my feet and walked around to the armrest of the couch. She kept studying me, probably thinking this was all a prank or something. What are you doing? She asked, arms still glued across her chest. I'm checking under the couch. I pushed one end of the couch away from the wall. It was pretty heavy, and the coffee table stopped me from moving it too far. I moved the coffee table towards the TV to free up some space. My roommate started staring at the spot I was clearing, as if she expected to see something there too. I went back over to the armrest. Can you help me? She snapped out of her trance and silently went to grab the other side. We pulled the couch away from the wall, revealing a thick rectangle of dust that had not seen the light of day since we moved a year ago. I dropped to my knees once more and began wiping away the grime with my bare hands. There was nothing but the floorboards beneath it. No surprise. I sat there for a second, eyes darting around the floor. No fingerprints in the dust, no scratches or marks or anything. I felt the tension in the room dissipate as my roommate found her voice again. I think you must have imagined it. I didn't. There's no way. Dude, no. I felt it and I saw it. Clear as day. It was a hand and it grabbed me. That's not the sort of thing you can just imagine. She scoffed. Any fear left in her giving way to frustration. Whatever. This is fucking stupid. I'm going to bed. She stomped off towards her room. Wait! She spun on her heels as I stood up, probably expecting me to tell her I was joking about the whole thing. Can you help me flip the couch over? She rolled her eyes. Sure, but I'm not helping you put it back. She helped me lift the couch off of its legs and tilt it onto its front cushions, exposing the fabric underneath. She disappeared into her room, and I went to work studying the underside of the sofa. There was a zipper lining the bottom, but I found nothing inside when I opened it up, just a hollow wooden frame and a bunch of crumbs. I sat back against the wall, more tired than scared at that point. I can't believe she thinks I'm making this up. Why would I even do that? What purpose would it serve? As I went about rebuilding our living room, I decided that the next day, today, I was going to take off work, wait for her to leave, and really get to the bottom of this. I didn't sleep at all last night. Every nook and cranny of my room felt like a door left wide open, with something sinister waiting on the other side. What if the hand comes back? What if it wants to hurt me next time? How can I even protect myself? After like 10 restless minutes in bed, I decided to move to the floor. I couldn't help it. I kept imagining the hand reaching up from under the bed and grabbing me again. I made a makeshift sleeping bag out of my comforter and some pillows and laid sideways so I could keep an eye on the underside of my bed frame while I slept. Maybe slept isn't the right word. Even down there, I couldn't bring myself to close my eyes for longer than a minute. Eventually, sunlight began to peek through the blinds, and I heard some movement within the apartment. My roommate was finally up. I heard the front door close, and it was time to get to work. I nearly threw my back out, yanking the couch away from the wall to reveal the floorboards again. They aren't real floorboards, just a kind of cheapo fake shit they put in crappy houses to make them look more modern. Our whole apartment is like that. A thin coat of paint slapped over an old building from the 30s, or whatever. My dad actually owns this building. He lets me and my roommate stay here as long as we pay him $500 a month, which is way cheaper than most places in my area. It's not really an apartment building, to be honest. You can tell it used to be a family home before some flippers swooped in and broke it up into apartments. There are a lot of those around here. Anyway, the fake came up easy. It was only about a 1/4 inch thick. I was able to pull up the first plank by cramming a kitchen knife into a slit between the boards, and then I peeled a few more away by hand. After prying away about a dozen of these fake floorboards, I started to realize that I wasn't going to find anything without making a significantly larger dent. Right beneath the thin layer of fake was a layer of very real, very thick wooden beams that seemed to span well beyond the hole I had managed to claw open. My back crackled and popped as I sat back on my heels to admire my handiwork and contemplate where to go from there. I knew I would need a power saw or some kind of heavy-duty tool to get any deeper, but I was afraid of two things: that these beams were supporting the entire second floor of the building, and cutting through them would make the whole thing collapse. That going any deeper would lead me into the ceiling of the apartment below us, and the guy who lives there would call my dad before I could see what I needed to see. Regardless of the risks, I knew I had to keep going. I was certain that something was down there. Whatever grabbed me had to have left some sort of evidence. I can't stop thinking about that fucking hand. I'm not supposed to have it, but my dad gave me a master key for the whole building in case of emergencies. He could really get in trouble if anyone found out, but if this is an emergency, then what is? There's a service shed around the back of the building, which has seen none of the love that the main building saw when it was renovated. Decades worth of rusty antiques and rotting furniture line the walls. A shiny modern tool bench sits unnaturally in the middle of the chaos. I rifled through all that shit as fast as I could. I'm not really close with my dad, all things considered, and I'm sure he'd be super pissed if he found me out there. He's so secretive about random shit all the time, and he's constantly dropping by the building unannounced. I found the jigsaw under a pile of old newspapers and ran back upstairs. I probably should have checked the driveway to see if anyone was home first, because the saw made so much noise. The cord barely reached from the outlet to the spot where the couch used to be, but as awkward as the angle was, I was still able to get it in there. I went as small as possible with my first few cuts. I started with single beam, cutting out a section about 6 inches wide. I slid the chunk of wood out, and to my relief, didn't immediately see the plaster that would be my downstairs neighbor's ceiling. A tuft of insulation stuck out where I made the hole. I didn't know that stuff is made from fiberglass or whatever, and I got a really bad splinter when I went to yank it out. I fished some leather gloves out of my roommate's closet and got to work on the insulation. I pulled and pulled, but couldn't get a good enough grip to remove anything more than a few bits about the size of a tennis ball. I went back in with a jigsaw, cutting bigger and bigger chunks until I had cleared a hole about 2 feet in diameter. No sign that I was going to bring the building down. That's good. I hacked away for hours. More wood came out, more insulation came out, and when I finally hit a fragile-looking layer of drywall, I knew the jig was up. That's definitely my neighbor's ceiling. Fuck, my roommate and I got in a screaming match when she got home. I made a pretty big mess, but I don't really give a fuck honestly. I don't give a fuck if she believes me. I fucking hate that bitch TBH. I told her if she tells my dad what I'm doing, I'll bash her brains in with a hammer. That shut her up. She left with a bag full of her clothes like an hour later. Tomorrow I'm going to wait for our downstairs neighbor to leave and start investigating from the bottom up. If there wasn't any evidence on the floor up here, there has to be something on the ceiling down there. If I do find something, I'll post again. I doubt anyone will even believe me, but at this point I just want everything written down somewhere accessible in case something bad happens. There has to be something down there. Something grabbed me, and I'm going to find out what it is. Finally, if you enjoyed the story, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. It might just save you from the curse of the tale. Realm of Shadow stories begin when everyone believes they've already ended. 𝕨𝕠𝕣𝕝𝕕